Hey guys, today we're going to be taking a look at issue 78 of IDW Sonic. Now, I'm going to be changing up how I do things in these reviews from now on. Before, I mostly stuck to analysis and only gave very brief summaries of the events of each issue, but I asked all of you what kind of video you would prefer, and you all basically said that you wanted more in-depth recaps in these videos. Now, the main reason why I was hesitant to do this at first is that I didn't want these videos to be a replacement for reading the comic, but rather an accompaniment. And so I'm going to be releasing these a week after the issues drop, at least from now on, to give the issues some time to rest. I highly recommend buying a version of the comic at your comic store if you have one nearby. It's absolutely worth the money. Also, while I'm plugging stuff, consider subscribing to this channel if you like the content, and maybe even consider becoming a member to help support the channel. Members get access to all of my content early, and I shout them out at the end of each video. With all of that said, let's just go ahead and get started with the recap. The issue opens with Amy, Tails, and Blaze riding in a car towards Barricade Town. This issue is following up pretty directly on the events of issue 75 and issue 76, where Restoration HQ was destroyed, and these characters are going around checking on other Restoration bases to see how things are running. They have a brief conversation, basically just explaining this to the viewer, and there's a really cute joke about Blaze being afraid of heights. Once they actually get to Barricade Town, they realize that things are pretty much fine. However, Blaze is still on edge, and Amy and Tails suspect that it has a lot to do with Blaze not being around for the last major crisis, i.e. the metal virus. They go hit up the Restoration offices, and we get a bit of exposition here. The most important thing that happens here is that they send a volunteer group to help rebuild the Restoration headquarters in Emeraldville. I will say that this was personally a pretty big relief to see. Knowing that Jewel's outburst doesn't mean that the Restoration in general is falling apart is a really welcome realization. Having the Restoration fall to pieces now would be undoing the only really important bit of world building the comic has done so far, so knowing that the rest of the network is still operational and the headquarters will likely be rebuilt is really nice to see. After this interaction, they leave Barricade Town and go to Glass Hill, where they see a fire has broken out. Blaze says that she'll go help out, but when she arrives, she sees that the locals are already putting it out with the coolest fire truck I've ever seen. It has like wisps in the tank and stuff, it's so cool. Also, Blaze, how exactly were you gonna put the fire out? All of your powers are shooting fire. What was the plan here? Tails and Amy catch up, and they all have a conversation with this monkey who says that he's going to help rebuild Restoration HQ, and that he feels like he kind of owes it to them. If you don't recognize this guy, this is the selfish little bastard who snuck into HQ infected with the metal virus and caused an outbreak there. Bro literally got my goat Vector infected. So yeah, this guy does kinda owe it to them to help fix this. By the way, someone pointed out to me in my comments that this monkey was also one of Mimic's teammates who he abandoned during the Eggman War, which is probably where he got his fear of being left alone in the first place. Honestly, really neat attention to detail. Screw this guy though. Later on, they turn their car into a boat and have a conversation about how happy they are that the Restoration is doing so well. More importantly, we get a pretty heartfelt moment between Blaze and Amy here, with Blaze complimenting Amy on her efforts in the Restoration. I thought it was really cute, and I also am pretty sure that shippers are going to have a field day with these panels. People already went crazy over that one panel of Amy hugging Blaze. This fire did not need any more fuel to keep burning. We then get an establishing shot of Turtle Shell Island, which is just such a cool location. It calls back to the whole world turtle idea in a way that's plausible enough while also still being fantastical. It's a great middle ground between feeling out of this world without breaking immersion. Having a city floating in the middle of a lake does seem a bit impractical and maybe a bit dangerous, but hey, it's probably worth it when your city is this awesome. Anyway, after a few beautiful panels exploring the city, they once again say that everything seems fine. That's when they're interrupted by someone who's not that ecstatic to see things so peaceful. Surge and Kid are here, and Surge is disappointed she has no one to beat up at the moment. Tails tries to say hi to Kit, but Kit is just literally not having it. This is one of my favorite moments in the issue, honestly. I love that Kit does not change at all across these three panels. Everyone starts to kind of settle down, Surge saying that they might as well just move on, but Kit says that you never know when something might happen, and then a very conveniently timed bomb blows up one of the few buoys holding the city afloat. Everyone except for Kit is very surprised and troubled by this, which all but confirms that he's the one that did this. Tails explains that this will put the town off balance and make it start to tip into the sea, and Surge says that she'll just go destroy one of the opposite buoys to help balance it out, which is a very obviously stupid idea. Surge runs off before Tails can tell her to not do that. Then Blaze says that she'll try and stop Surge and runs after her, and we get an extended sequence of Blaze chasing after Surge. And I'm gonna be real, this is literally an entire page dedicated to my two goats. I am eating this month. Also, there are a ton of little details that I really love here. I love that Surge trips this guy as she runs by, and I love how Blaze is reacting to all of the lightning on the rope as they run across it. This entire chase sequence just feels really alive. Like, the entire thing feels like I could see how it would play out in motion in my head. Also, I might be capping here, but this entire sequence kind of gives me the impression that Surge is faster than Blaze. Like, a lot faster. If you follow her lightning trails in the shot of the city, you can see that she's apparently covering way more distance than Blaze, but is still in front of her. So she would need to be faster than Blaze to pull this off. And as the #1 Blaze fan, this kind of makes sense to me. Back in the Rush games, Blaze was the slower character between her and Sonic, but had a higher jump to compensate, I believe. Blaze being slower than the other top tier Sonic characters, but having other powers to make up for it does kind of scan. To be clear, she is still probably one of the fastest characters in the verse, being comparable in speed to Surge, who we know is basically as fast as Sonic, does put you in that tier. Anyway, stupid nerd stuff aside, Surge then destroys the rope and Blaze tells her exactly why that was a stupid thing to do. Surge passes the blame to Tails and Blaze says that they should just go back and talk to him. We cut back to the city and see the Restoration evacuating people. Amy comes up to help and they say that they have it covered, and honestly at this point I started to feel like they are maybe being a bit too heavy-handed with the whole the Restoration is competent without the heroes thing. This is like the third page this issue dedicated to showing non-superhero Restoration members doing good work. It's starting to feel like we could maybe have covered this idea without being so direct about it. Now, the page does do more than just show this bear guy being cool. It also gives us a lot of information on exactly what everyone's doing. The bear says that the town is basically done for, but they need to focus on evacuating. Amy says that she'll help evacuate everyone, and the bear says to make sure that she gets off the island herself. We cut back to the ensemble, Surge and Blaze having just returned. Amy tells Surge to help her evacuate people, and Surge argues back saying that it's not flashy or anything. Amy tells her that that's not the point, and Surge relents. Blaze asks Tails if he has a plan to save the town, and he says that he does. He says that Blaze can use her powers to create a thermal vent at the bottom of the ocean, which would lift the town long enough for them to repair the buoys and save the town. Blaze says that she's ready, but she needs transport to the bottom of the lake. Tails says that Kit can actually help them. Kit obviously tries to get out of it by saying that he doesn't want to upstage Surge, but Surge says that any glory he gets will also go to her, so it's perfectly fine. This is kind of a small thing, but this at least to me makes it seem like Surge is maybe a bit more willing to actually try and help people than Kit is. Well, that and the fact that Kit is probably on the no-fly list now. With that, everyone goes off to do their part of the plan. Amy, Tails, and Surge evacuate civilians, and we get a cute line about how a little girl won hide and seek from Amy that made me laugh. I also love how Surge is in the background of this panel checking houses like she's trying to rack up a high score or something, which honestly is probably how she's thinking about this whole thing now that I think about it. We cut to Kit and Blaze making their way to the bottom of the lake, and honestly, Blaze better count herself lucky that Kit doesn't have any beef with her, because if Tails was here, that fox would not be making it back. Honestly, this entire page of them diving into the depths is as cool as it is terrifying. Kit confirming that they do in fact have a limited air supply and that Blaze has to finish her job before they suffocate is like one of the scariest things I've ever heard, and I don't think they're even trying. I feel like I've had nightmares basically exactly like this before, actually. Once we do get to the bottom of the lake, we have a really nice scene about Blaze reflecting on her past with her powers, reminding us about some aspects of her character that we really haven't gotten to see in a long time. As someone who's a big fan of Sonic Rush in my childhood, I'm glad to see that these aspects of her character are still on the writers' minds. Also, marine mention. Blaze successfully creates the geothermal vent or whatever and keeps the town afloat, and it looks like the day has successfully been saved. We cut back to Surge and Kid and get confirmation that while they are playing nice, They're not quite good, guys. Surge is only interested in the fame she can get by playing hero, and Kid is planning on purposely messing stuff up in order to give her more chances to do exactly that in the future. For the final page, we cut to Whisper, who's waiting for somebody, probably Tangle, in a cafe in the Rainbow Ravine, which, I'll be real, is my new favorite location in this comic. It reminds me of going to the canyons behind my house and exploring when I was a kid, and the rainbow colors make it feel so mystical and fun. We need this shit as a level in a Sonic game ASAP. Anyway, returning to the plot, Mimic is spying on Whisper and talking some mad shit, and the comic announces that this is the last time they'll be fighting in the next issue. I just want to say, it fucking better be. I am just so tired of this plotline being retreaded and not actually progressing very much. I really want some sort of conclusion to this arc in the next issue. Also, bro is just aura farming here and not doing a great job at it. You're in the same universe as Metal Sonic, but you're gonna have to step up the aura farming if you want to compete. So, general thoughts? I think this is a big step up from the last two issues. I'm down for basically every plot development in this issue and don't have any big reservations about the direction the comic is taking these characters. I really liked Blaze's mini arc about feeling bad about not being able to protect her friends in the Chaos Dimension. Yes, I will keep calling Sonic's Dimension that, and then eventually remembering her past and using it to come to her senses later on. It's kind of a small moment in the grand scheme of things, but it's nice to see that these characters actually have thoughts and feelings beyond their surface level character traits still. But let's be real, Surge and Kid are the real stars of the show here. This is the first time we've seen Surge and Kid's new direction as antagonists since the Phantom Rider arc, and while we did get a sneak peek thanks to the annual, I really think this issue gives us a better idea of how their dynamic is going to work going forward. Surge is now straight up a Cloud Shark, and it's not clear if the heroes know that's what she's doing yet or not, but she's clearly causing problems as a result. Kid is honestly even more fascinating, and I really want to know what the eventual result of his little scheme is going to be. I honestly can't wait for the big scene where we finally get to see Surge and Kit be confronted about what Kit's been doing. Now, realistically, there are about two ways I can see this going. The first is Surge gets defensive for Kid after he's found out, as she feels like he's being attacked for no reason, and this causes her to be pushed even further away from everyone else. You could set this up with Surge just not knowing that Kid has actually been doing all of those bad things, but that's honestly a lot less interesting because it just means that the entire conflict would be based on a misunderstanding. And as we all know from issue 63, misunderstandings being the main driving force of plot developments is just so much fun. Now, the second and more interesting option in my mind is that Surge feels betrayed by Kit when she learns that he's been scheming behind her back, and this causes a rift between the pair. I really like this because I think it would give Kit a chance to shine on his own as a character. I feel like Kit is kind of unanimously agreed upon to be a pretty underrated character, which at that point is a character even underrated if everyone thinks they're underrated. Whatever. The point is, Kid is basically always playing second fiddle to Surge, despite having just as much personality and depth if you're willing to look into it for even a second, and a lot of that is in canon by design, but that doesn't make it any less disappointing that we haven't gotten to see more from the little guy. I feel like this little plot development, however it ends up, is really going to push Kid into the limelight, and I'm really excited for it. In particular, I think the possibility of them having a sort of falling out is fascinating because they're just so attached to each other. Kid is the more obviously clingy of the two, but Surge is just as reliant on him as he is on her. I think forcing the pair to try and navigate things without the other one is a perfect catalyst for more character development. Moving away from character stuff, I think seeing that the restoration is still going strong is a relief. Though the pacing of the issue overall was hurt by dwelling on this point for just a bit too long. The pacing of the overall issue is still fine though. We spent just enough time on all of the important stuff, and it's not like this issue is dangling a big twist on its final page throughout the entire issue when it's the most obvious twist in the entire world. And yes, I am still a bit upset about issue 77. Also, I really feel like the artist got a chance to show off this issue. The art is always great in IDW with very few issues that I don't absolutely love the art of, but this one is still a standout. If I had to complain about anything in this issue, Tails and Amy feel a bit underutilized, especially Tails. Amy at least has a moment with Blaze, but Tails really doesn't get to interact much with Kit. He mostly just spouts exposition for everybody else and comes up with plans, which is cool in some sense, but I wish these characters could have a more meaningful arc at some point. I feel like this story had the opportunity to flesh out Tails and Kit's relationship a bit more, but they didn't actually take the time to do that. Tails' presence feels like it's mostly for the sake of plot convenience rather than being a major plot point of the story, which I feel like it should have been given that Kit wants to murder him, and that is a big part of his character. As for the teaser for issue 79, I'm gonna have some thoughts next month when that drops, but as of right now, I'm cautiously optimistic for how that issue will handle everything. Overall, this issue was solid, and I'm decently excited for the future of the comic after reading it, which is a lot more than I can say for the last two issues, so I'm counting this as a W. I do want to say before we go that I am keeping up with the DC crossover. I just want to wait for the entire crossover to come out before I cover it. With all that said, I'll see you guys next month for issue 79. Quick shout out to all my members: Fate Testarasa, Joseph Florian, Mega Sonic Rose, Sonic Storm, Bokabara, Agent P7, and Elric111.